Welcome to Why We're Fans. I'm Duran, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Gennaro.
In all of our episodes, we cover the past, present, and the future of all your favorite NFL football teams.
We love hearing your stories, talking the NFL draft, and reminiscing about the good old days.
If you like the same, be sure to subscribe to this channel and like this episode. And leave a comment below if you want to answer any of our questions.
Follow us on Twitter to stay up to date on our latest interviews. And like we always say, win or lose, we're all fans. Enjoy this episode.
And welcome back to another episode of Why We're Fans. It's your hosts, as always, Gennaro and Duran Munez. Duran, how's your Wednesday going today?
Good, man. Ready to start recording and talk some football here in the off season.
A lot of moving parts. I can't remember the last off season we had where a lot of moving pieces have been going on. But before we get into all of that, let's go ahead and bring in our guest. We got Alex Caruso. Alex, how you doing, man?
I'm great to be here. Appreciate you guys having me. Excited to be on the show and talk about the fanhood.
Oh yeah, man. We're pretty excited to have on a Pats fan, right? You're a Patriots fan, am I correct?
I am.
So yeah, man. Excited to have that. You guys, you are probably like the most recent dynasty that's just been going on a run. It's always good to see. Yeah, man. Duran, anything?
Might be two dynasties. I think they went on a run there for a minute, took a break, then went on another, and looks like they're on the rise again. So we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it's always exciting, man. I mean, I bet it is for you, Alex, especially being a fan of the Patriots. So, man, that's always great. Yeah, man. If you want to go ahead and let everybody know where we can find you, any kind of types of work that you're working on, go ahead and plug yourself, shout yourself out, man. Give yourself a little shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. So you can find me on the biggest place you can probably find me each and every day is definitely on Twitter at Alex Caruso, just like the name, just like the famous basketball player. No underscores, numbers, anything in between. You can find me on TikTok, which is probably my biggest platform, at Alex Caruso NFL. You can also find my work on YouTube at Fresh Fantasy and on the Football Guys website. I'm also a contributor with them. But those are all the big places that you can find me. I also have an Instagram page, fresh_fantasy. We don't really post anymore, but those are all my platforms.
Well, has anyone ever offered to pay for that handle, the Twitter one?
No, well, actually, I personal story, I actually paid for the handle myself about 6 months ago. I had a different handle and I was like, you know what, like if I want to, go big in the Twitter game, I might as well go for it. The guy that had it said that he gave me an offer for it. We negotiated a little bit. So we were able to work out a deal to get his handle. And thankfully it was not too big of a price for such a popular name, especially in the NBA world. So hopefully the real Alex Caruso for the Lakers or for the Bulls now will come out and try to get it for me soon. But I thankfully was able to get it for a reasonable price.
Yeah, no underscores, no nothing like that.
Nothing.
Yeah, I know like the famous Twitter handle, like what is it, Chipotle? Like it has to be Chipotle tweets because the guy Alex Chipotle won't give that up or whatever. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So pretty excited to talk about this. Like you said, I mean, you made a bargain deal with the guy to get your Twitter name. I mean, hopefully it wasn't as big as what the Dolphins gave up today for Tyreek Hill, man. So I mean, it's in your division, so I know you keep eyes on all the moving pieces within your division, whether it's the Bills, Jets, or the Dolphins, and they all seem to be making moves. So that's pretty. It's pretty excited as an NFL fan, but as a Patriots fan, I know you're keeping eyes on it. But in Bill, you guys trust, I bet.
No, I think you definitely got to trust in Bill, and I think this offseason's been a little bit tougher because I think our two biggest signings at this point are probably like re-signing Trent Brown and bringing back Malcolm Butler today was pretty exciting. But especially after what we saw last season and the most free agency money that we've ever spent in an offseason. Yeah. And then this NFL has turned into an arms race where especially the AFC West, the Dolphins are loading up with Tyreek Hill. It's a little tough to see us not making as many moves. But again, I think it's tough to say though, but it was looking up at the end of last season, but I'm not sure our window right now is win now. I mean, there was a thing that Ari Mirov put out today that every big trade that's happened has been a guy going to the AFC. The only big player traded to the NFC this offseason was Carson Wentz. And, like if Carson Wentz wants to go to the NFC, like, all right, I'm not too worried about it. But all the people coming in the AFC, I'm not sure our title window is now anymore. I think it's a little bit tough to see, but I know we have a lot of cap space opening up in 2023. So I hope that maybe, Bill wants to make one final push, go big or go home, but I'm not sure necessarily that 2022 is our season. But lo and behold, I will be there every game watching, enjoying every single minute of Patriots football that I can get.
It's awesome, man.
You guys were the big spenders last year.
Yeah, we were. I mean, it was the most money that Bill's ever spent. And I think it was the most money that had been spent, in that offseason as well. I mean, at one time it was ridiculous.
Yeah, a lot of guaranteed money.
Yeah, it was such a, you guys, especially in like the COVID offseason as well, you don't know how much money you're going to take. You guys spent I felt like it was just one day, just signing after signing after signing, especially bringing back, Kyle Van Noy and all that. And this offseason, you guys, kick him to the curb. Who knows? You guys might sign him back for super cheap, especially how weird the offseason goes. Like, I think the Eagles cut Fletcher Cox, then re-signed him, and all that weird business and whatnot. I know it's cap savvy moves or whatnot, so that I think that's good. But yeah, man, it's this the offseason that I usually expect from the Patriots. Last year, I was kind of shocked and excited as a football fan, like I said. But yeah, this is the kind of offseason that I usually expect from, the Bills. I mean, you guys shipped off Mason, right, to the Bucks.
Yep.
You guys didn't re-sign Gunnar Shevchesky, which is I kind of expected that, but it was also like, okay, there's somebody like at Montana State that you guys are going to bring in to just go ham on the slot receiver side. So, but yeah, like you said, Trent Brown's finally back. Hopefully he's in shape this time. I mean, I know that he's always been a knucklehead, but he knows how that system works. Get your ass in shape or we'll kick you to the curb. So
definitely. And I think I actually love the Trent Brown deal they did. I mean, it's 2 years, but I think the biggest thing is the fact that they only guaranteed $4 million. And it's like a super incentive laden contract. They've had issues with his calves the last couple of years, had weight issues, conditioning issues a little bit. But when he's been in there, I think he's been solid. And I think the fact that, anytime you have a big incentive laden deal, sometimes it can go great, sometimes it can go poor. But I think it's a low risk, high reward for someone like Trent Brown, especially when we lost guys like Ted Karras. We traded away Shaq Mason. I don't understand why. But I know we have Mikey Lenu. Trent Brown's a great signing to help kind of fill that offensive line. We still have David Andrews. So I think we're going to be okay with them and Isaiah Wynn and all those guys. But, obviously you never like to see it, but I do like the Trent Brown deal at least, but I'm hoping that he can hold up because that'll be very critical for Mac Jones' success both now and in the future.
Yeah, McCorkle's got to get along with Trent Brown for sure. I know that it's key. You got to take care of your linemen so your linemen take care of you. That's 100%. But Duran, anything else before we get started about Alex's fanhood story?
Start from the beginning.
All right, so here we go. First things first, we want to know how it all started. How did you start being? I don't know what do the Patriots fans call themselves? I know there's faithful for the 49ers. Do you guys have a?
No, it's just Pats fans. That's usually what people say. Patriots fans. There's no real saying. I think we just call ourselves winners. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those obnoxious people. I promise. But no, people say Patriots fans, Pats fans, massholes from Massachusetts people. So however you want to put it.
So how'd you become a part of the the whole Patriots thing over there?
Well, I think it's just being a part of born and raised, in Massachusetts. Like I'm not just some big bandwagon fan. I fell in love right as they were getting good.
You're a masshole then, right?
Yeah, I am. I was born in central Massachusetts, like an hour out of Boston. I live in Boston right now. I go to school in Boston. And so again, when you're born in it, you got to love it. And again, I got lucky to be born when I was, as we were winning a lot of titles. I wish I was born like 10 years earlier and I could have appreciated more because I feel like it wasn't until 2008 or 2009 when I started to understand it. And it probably wasn't even until the Patriots won their first Super Bowl again in 2014 where I really understood wow, this is what a championship looks like. But again, I'm so grateful to be in it, but I definitely know that, titles aren't going to be flowing like they were, as I was growing up the same way. And I'm just trying to enjoy every run that we get and hope that we can come up with another championship. But to answer the question that, yeah, I was born here. Everyone in my family loves the Boston sports teams. And I think it's just, that's how you're born and what you're born into team wise. And I think that's how I grew up.
How many generations do we got? Is your dad a fan? Is your grandpa? You have any kids yourself or any?
Yeah, no, I do not have kids yet. I'm only 21, so hopefully no kids for a few years at least. But no, it's I'd say three generations, because my grandfather moved here from Sicily, Italy. And again, he moved right into Framingham Mass, which is like 30 minutes outside of Boston. And then everyone's grown up there since, and started to love the Boston sports teams. And yeah, three generations.
Ever see any players in public growing up in the area?
I have not personally until I came to Boston for school. Okay. I got to meet Devin McCourty at a school event that he came to speak at, and I was able to go and meet him. I got to meet, I know this isn't the Patriots wise, but I got to meet Jason Tatum like a week later at a fan event that they hosted. And this is on the low, but I might get to interview Mac Jones for my school in a couple weeks. They're trying to secure him to come in to speak at Suffolk, and to my understanding, I'd be the one that would get to do the Q&A and be the MC of the event if I got to do it.
Nice, we'll be looking out for that.
Yeah, definitely, man. Shout out to McCorkle over there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you know any season ticket holders?
I don't actually know. My uncle has season tickets. I think he still has 2 season tickets somewhere up in the nosebleeds every year. But I've only been to one game ever, and it was a preseason game. I've been to a lot of Red Sox games, Celtics games, a few Bruins games, but the Patriots ones, not as much. But that's the one team that, like, every single Sunday since I was probably at least 9 or 10 years old, all I can ever remember is watching footballs all Sunday, every Sunday. Like, that is my life, every time football season comes around.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm pretty sure our other sports team will butt heads, because I do support the Yankees. I do support the Lakers. So I know we'll butt heads a lot here, but this is not the type of show where we want to know about your Patriots, fanhood for sure. So what was the preseason game? Who were they playing against?
It was against the Panthers. It was the year that Brady got suspended, and it was like week 2 of the preseason. He came and he threw, I think he only played like one drive, and he threw a touchdown. But yeah, it was against the Panthers, and I want to say it was like 2016, right after that 4-game suspension happened.
Jeez. Yeah, we all remember Deflategate. We can get into that another time for sure. But
anyone on a tear after that, right?
Yeah.
Came back.
He did. So what was it like, I'm curious, what was it like cheering on the Italian Stallion or Jimmy Garoppolo as a Patriots fan?
I loved it. I loved watching Jimmy G. I wish he didn't get hurt, in like the third, he had a chance for maybe 4 starts and he got hurt in the third one. But again, even as Jimmy G went to the Niners, I think he's always someone I rooted for. Again, people in Foxborough and fans, reporters, people around the team, because I was always reading up everything I could, especially in high school when I had all the time in the world to do it. Everybody like universally loved who he is as a competitor. And from what I've heard in San Francisco, it seems like the same thing. I know he's frustrating as a player sometimes, some of the decisions, but it seems like as a person, as a teammate, people seem to really, really like him. And he's someone that no matter where he goes, even if it's the Jets or the Panthers or wherever he gets traded to, I think he's someone that, I'll always have a special place in my heart for, especially like him, Jacoby Brissett, guys in that, as Brady calls the Wolf Pack, in 2016 and 2017, when those 3 guys were all together.
Yeah, Brissett, man, his Twitter feed is definitely something funny to read, man. He's
really, I don't follow him.
Yeah, he's a good follow, man. He like just tweets like the random stuff. Like he'll be just talking shit about random people at lunch or something like that, and he'll just, I don't know, man. He's quirky. He's pretty funny. I like. It's a good follow for sure. But I'm curious. So growing up a Patriots fan, were you gifted like a hand me down as far as like a merchandise like swagger goes, or were you like, was it brand new? Was it yours? Like what was your first jersey, or what have you?
Yeah, I actually was not. I was not one of the kids that got a hand me down. I've never. And this is like shocking to a lot of people, especially because like I probably spend more time reading about Boston sports or watching YouTube videos than like most people, I would guess, with the insane hours I spend. But I've never been a huge like jersey person in terms of like wearing the jersey every Sunday. Like I have my Patriots shirts and stuff like that, but I was never much of a jersey wearer. But my first jersey was in like I want to say it was in 2012. I think it was after Gronk's like insane rookie season. I got a Rob Gronkowski jersey. And I know this, shame on me for not getting one, but I actually didn't even get a Tom Brady jersey until 2019, the last year he was with the Pats. I just wasn't much of a jersey person at that. I think my only jerseys were like an RG3 jersey because he went off for me in my first ever year playing fantasy in his rookie year, and then a Gronk jersey. Those are my first two jerseys. But again, to this day, I have an old Gronk jersey and I have a Tom Brady jersey for the Patriots. That's really all I have for jerseys. But my dad, has a bunch of old like to Patriots like AFC championship sweatshirts from like 03 and 04. Those were more the staples of my childhood, watching him wear like the old, like tatted, like the old battered shirts that he still wears that have like 3 or 4 holes in them that remind him of like the first years of them winning that he can remember. Collar. Yeah, exactly.
You're rocking a hoodie right now. Are they have the bill cut off or whatnot?
No, I got the full. I love the question, but no, I get the full sleeves on these. I honestly just don't have the swagger Bill does. I can't walk around like that. I don't feel like I can, have the same mantra that he can walk around with this cutoff hoodies though, but mad respect for him to being able to pull that off, especially in the fashion world that we live in. I respect it.
That's awesome. Duran?
I want to know who you guys consider your number one rival. You guys were on top for a long time. It feel like you just have always dominated your division. Is it someone in the division, outside? Who do you got?
Yeah, I think it depends on the different way you look at it. Because I think like on a year-to-year level, I think it's like the Bills were probably the one team that like, always gave us a run for their money a little bit. Felt like we usually beat, but we're always the team that felt like the rival. But to me growing up, and again, like when like you're always, every year is a banner year and you want to win a championship growing up. And you always hope that next year's the next spring that you win a Super Bowl, just like everybody else. So I think to me, I feel like the biggest rival for us was the Ravens. Like every single time we played them, it was either the Ravens or the Steelers that always gave us a hard time. For me, I'd probably say the Ravens because I know they beat us more times in the playoffs than the Steelers did. But like that was like the one team that when we were playing the Ravens, it was like, oh no, like this is not like okay, I feel pretty good. This always felt like a coin flip every single time that we played the Ravens. So I think that's the team that I'd probably say the biggest rival playoff wise that felt like, but the Bills as a year-to-year team, even now and before, were always the team that I feel like I didn't want to play the most.
I remember there was a couple years there too where Miami kept getting you guys.
Every year in Miami, we didn't win in my like at Miami for like 4 or 5 years. Like the last before Brady retired, I mean, they cost us, a first round bye that led to us eventually losing to the Titans, like in Brady's last year. And again, if we beat Miami in week 17, and if Devontae Parker didn't score 2 touchdowns on Stephon Gilmore, we probably have a bye and maybe that season goes a little bit different. But again, stuff like that, Miami's a team that definitely always gave us fits and were annoying to play. But I felt like the Bills were always more of that classic, like they throw their fans through tables, and it felt like a rival of like the biggest fans kind of thing at the time, at least. But I know a lot of Pats fans have jumped off the bandwagon, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Last one for me, G.
What was that?
That was the last one for how it started for me.
To go back to the rivals, I felt like it wasn't much really a rival. I felt like you guys were just big brothering, the Colts. I know they always try to make, Tom versus Peyton, but I think if you look at the numbers and you look at like the matchups, Tom obviously has that. But I'm just curious, in that rivalry between either the Ravens or the Bills or, Miami Dolphins, was there a player that you hated going against?
Ed Reed. Ed Reed was the guy. Because again, like I think that if you ask my dad the question about who's the biggest rival, he'd probably say the Colts. But I didn't grow up in the 2000s where Peyton Manning was playing for the Colts and, the guy that really stopped our Super Bowl run from winning like 3 in a row and taking us down. But like, I think that it was more for me watching someone like Ed Reed. And every time we played the Ravens in the playoffs, anytime the ball would go near Ed Reed, I was terrified, whether it was going to be a pick or he was going to absolutely drop whoever was running across the middle of the field. Ed Reed was always a guy that I was afraid of. I still will be afraid of. I see Ed Reed out in public, I will still run to this day. He was definitely the guy that I was always the most scared of.
Yeah, he's got that. It's funny because like he has the same position as Matthew McConaughey does in Texas. He has like the Minister of Culture, so and he has that down in Miami. So I think that's very very fitting, especially with those old school, the U days back in the day. So it's very fitting for him. But yeah, I mean, I don't know whether to give him a hug or just like brace myself for a hit if I saw him in public. Because I mean, I definitely one of my favorite players ever to watch. Probably one of my favorite safeties. But yeah, man, that's I can imagine playing against him in the AFC would be a headache.
Definitely.
All right, so with the next section that we have, I mean, we got to get a Sanborn Duran. We got to. I mean, that's our next purchase. But we want to know your favorite player, and it's a little bit unusual because we usually just flat out want to know your favorite player, but especially being like Duran said, possibly 2 dynasties. We want to know your favorite player other than Tom Brady, but before you tell us, we're gonna take a guess. So Duran, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm going with the first jersey, Gronk.
All right, going with Gronk there. I'm gonna go with let's see here. There's so many guys for sure, but I'm gonna take a swing here. I mean, it may be kind of hated here. No, I'm not gonna say Hernandez, but I'm gonna say Willie McGinnis.
I love both of those answers, but the answer is actually probably not a classic answer that you'd expect from like a true Patriot guy that played for like 15 years or anything like that. It was the guy that really like I liked more than Tom Brady when I first started liking the Patriots, and he didn't even play for the Patriots for that long. And it was Randy Moss. Like Randy Moss to me felt like my childhood. It was playing Madden 12 and putting Randy Moss on a Hail Mary route and throwing to Randy Moss every single time with Brady. Like Randy Moss was my childhood. He's like my favorite wide receiver of all time. I watch all his highlights. I watch all his Patriots highlights. And when I first started like understanding the game of football, it was watching Brady throw to Moss. It wasn't during they're getting 21 touchdowns when Brady threw, 50 in 2007. But even after that, like I loved watching Randy Moss play. And he to me always felt like that classic guy that like you could always throw to. And I grew up, watching in Madden, and the guy I always wanted on my fantasy team. I think Randy Moss was kind of that guy to me that was always really special. And I think to me still sticks with me. I think like my answer would kind of change today a little bit and say someone like more like at least the last decade, it would be like a Devin McCourty for me, of a guy that is just so reliable.
He's a pro's pro.
He's a pro's pro, but he's also a great player, a great teammate. He does a lot of stuff in the community for the community. One of the only Patriots I've ever gotten to meet in real life, and hearing him speak and how genuine it is when you go up and you talk to him. I mean, guys like that you can't ever forget. But my favorite, besides Tom Brady, honestly, would probably be Randy Moss. Just because, again, that was my memory of when I first got into my fanhood, and like that's always stuck with me to this day.
That's awesome, man. I mean, especially you're a lot younger than us here because I'm 33.
Yeah.
And for you being 21 and saying like Randy Moss is your favorite, he was one of my favorites as well. I mean, I remember scoring, when I was in Little League and just doing this, because of him for sure. And, watching Man of the Arena and hearing him talk and, he's a man. I was on a bye week when I was playing for the Oakland Raiders. I flew out, to a game to talk to Tom and say, hey, come get me. And the next year that they did for something like dirt cheap, I think like a fourth
round pick.
Yeah. Just seeing them tear it up together. They just had that instant connection. I don't know. People can say like, man, like it was more Tom or no, it was more Randy. I just think it was both of them meshing well together. They're both have that let's win right now together. So like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like whatever it was, I just felt like they had that instant connection, and it was awesome to see. It was just great football, definitely. He knew when to throw it. Like there's so many times where I'd watch it back, and before he'd put his, signature hand up, like I'm open, the ball was already thrown in the air because Tom Brady knew. Like Tom knew. So it was great to see.
Definitely. No, and I love that. And I think that especially again, like you, I felt like I was reliving so much of that watching Man in the Arena and just hearing him smile and talk and how excited he got just talking about, what his relationship was like with Brady. And I think I was always drawn to those guys that came in, like, even when, Chad Ochocinco came in to play with the Patriots for a year. I mean, Josh Gordon was a guy I absolutely fell in love with, and I wanted so badly to be so great for the Patriots, and watching him have a good year when they first brought him in. And, Brady threw his 500th touchdown to him against the Colts. I mean, guys like that, Brady helped. I mean, even Antonio Brown is a guy that when he came into the Patriots, like I always wanted to see him succeed so badly, even if it was just for 1 week. Again, just guys like that I loved watching with Brady, and just see him get some of these all-time talents, see what he can do with him, and the type of connection that the best of the best can have with the best of the best.
Gets the most out of them.
Yeah, he definitely did. I mean, going back to like even further than, Randy, was Corey Dillon before Randy, like on the Patriots?
Yeah, he was.
I feel like a lot of people are like, oh man, that's the Patriots, that's a retirement home. But like, it always reminded me of Moneyball. It's like, we're going to squeeze like the last bit that you have and, use it to our advantage. He did it it sounds so weird, and rest in peace for saying that. I think he did it for Seau, when Seau was alive. He didn't bring him in, but man, he just made this guy a superstar in, Aaron Hernandez. Watching Aaron Hernandez and Gronk together, that was very, very lethal. And, that then goes to Randy Moss. He did the same thing to just all these players that he brought in, but him and Randy, I feel like they had the best connection. I mean, people could be like, oh man, it was Wes Welker, it was Julian Edelman, but him and Randy were just different, man. It was awesome to see. It was exciting as a football fan. It was exciting as a receiver fan as well.
Yeah, I think actually now that you say that, and he kind of slipped my mind for a second, it wouldn't, over the last decade, it wouldn't be Devin McCourty. It would have to be Julian Edelman. I mean, man, oh man, like that is like, and I think it goes back to what you said with like the Montana State or whoever it is, like slot wide receiver. I mean, like, to me and someone like me, I'm a taller guy. I'm 6'4", like I'm a taller guy, but still it's like someone growing up in high school, and like that's the guy that you can relate to. Whoever the slot receiver white guy that looks like the Walmart cashier that's in the lane next to if I'm working, like that's the guy that you can relate to as much as you want. That's why you love those kind of guys as fans, because they're the guys that look the most like you and they look like the average Joe. And I think that I always admired like the toughness that I feel like no one had, that I didn't have. And I just love watching that from Edelman week after week, where he'd get up and you'd cringe, almost want to like hide under a blanket during a horror movie kind of thing. But then he'd get up. And I think watching him, especially in that last Super Bowl run in 2018, where against the Chiefs, I mean, like on that final drive where 3 3rd and 10s in a row, Brady was going to Jules, and every single time he converted. You go against the Rams and you get Super Bowl MVP, 13 catches, and play after play after play. Whenever they needed it, they were going to Jules. And I think that kind of heart that you always talk about, it's so cliche, but when it's that, but it's also relatable, is like one of those things that you'll never remember. And the Julian Edelman jersey is definitely going to be next on my list of jerseys I got to get, because again, like that's the kind of toughness that you always love to watch. And again, it's so cliche, but it's also so inspiring, especially when it comes from someone that just looks like an average Joe, just like me or you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you always got to look out for the red gloves, and hearing the story behind it, it's just like, Tom, Bill, he always had like this saying like, hey man, they're away, so wear white gloves. Hey, we're home, or whatever, wear these color gloves. He goes, no, I had to wear red gloves because I wanted my mom to know who I was. And I think that's awesome. I'm always rooting for the California guys, especially being out here in California, especially Northern California. Always, rooting for them as well. And especially a guy, being a quarterback at, Kent State.
Yeah.
And I remember during, I forget what year, but he even put in his time on defense as well. He broke that dude's arm in the Super Bowl as well, on that interception. That guy was just gritty. The guy was just tough. It goes back to a clip as well that I remember the most, and Julian Edelman wasn't even featured. Well, he wasn't featured in this clip, but my brother always brings it up. He's Bill is talking to Wes Welker, I think, on a preseason game. He goes, man, this guy's going to take your job. This guy's going to take the punt returner job. He goes, oh, you can have it. You can have it. And he goes, oh, way to compete. And like, that was his like shining moment, and he never, he never gave it up. Julian Edelman, he'll play through injury, he'll play through whatever. Like you said, he's gritty, and he does look like an average Joe. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They're a underrated player that you feel like maybe outside of the fan base doesn't get as much recognition as they deserve?
Ooh, that's a great question. A guy that does not get as much recognition as they
I know
deserve.
you guys just re-signed Matthew Slater. He kind of plays,
Yeah.
he's just that dog that's out there showing.
That's a good one.
Week. Yeah, but there's usually like a fan favorite or someone that people don't really recognize if they're not watching the Patriots every week.
Yeah, definitely. I think I think Matthew Slater was actually going to be my first answer off of that. Cause again, like I watched whenever the Patriots win a game, they always post like a minute of locker room footage after the game. And literally as long as I can remember for the last like 7 or 8 years, I've had Instagram. Every single time they win, it's Matthew Slater breaking those guys down. He's the one in the center of that circle every single game. He's a Pro Bowler almost every single year for a special teams guy. Not a lot of guys know his name, but he's just one of those guys that you love to have in the locker room that you always see that people talk about. He's just one of those, classic true Patriot locker room guys. But another guy that I think for me that isn't with the team anymore, but is a guy that no one talks about enough. And I think that like a guy that we don't win the Super Bowl without multiple times is Danny Amendola. I mean, that's a guy that, whenever people say his name, you see the head nods and you see the smile every time I say his name. But he was a guy that was similar to like Edelman, that he was hurt a lot of his career. But whenever he was on the field and whenever he needed him in the biggest moments, he was the guy that came through. I mean, he did it against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. He did it against in 2016 against the Jaguars in the AFC Championship game when we were down 10, catching a touchdown. He was doing it in the Super Bowl. I know Edelman made the catch, but Danny Amendola made some other big catches in that game. And man, every single time we needed him in the playoffs, it always felt like he would come through. And those are the guys that you love to have that never get enough love. But as long as those championships go down and those rare times you get to experience such a high, that you'll never forget those moments and some of those guys that made those big plays. And I think Danny Amendola is the one that sticks out, the most for me in that regard.
Another Texas Tech guy, right?
I actually don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think that him and Wes went to the same college, if I recall. But yeah, I like that one, Danny Amendola.
He's a Tech guy. You're right. Good call.
Okay. Texas Tech. Ready to move on, G?
Yes, sir. Let's move on.
I think the next one's kind of an obvious answer. We want to know your favorite coach, and why is it Bill Belichick? What's your favorite thing about Bill? I mean, there's no other coaches.
That's a good one.
Maybe you could think of a coordinator or a assistant guy that you also liked.
I think I love Bill because I love that he's like I think the thing I love the most about him that I always hear year after year is that he's actually like the polar opposite of what you see in the press conferences. I think that's my favorite thing about him is that like even though on the outside it looks like he's just like this hard guy, whatever, that like whenever they always have like, every team, they send out their like they have the little videos like in the media days for the season and they ask him all the silly questions like who's funny, whatever. That Bill's always a guy they say is hilarious and he actually is personable and he really does care about his players and stuff like that. And I love that. And I think the other thing that I love about him is that, it always feels like that, the second half team that no matter what happens in the first half, you always feel like even though they like coaches say the mid half adjustments don't really mean that much. I always felt like we were on the winning side of those first half adjustments. Or anytime we had a bye week or we played on a Thursday and we wouldn't play for 10 days, I always felt like we had an extra advantage. And like I don't even know what goes on inside those coaching boxes. I don't know how much extra time it did, but it's just one of those subtle advantages that I always felt good about in my heart, knowing that the more time we have to prepare, the more likely we are to win because we have, Bill Belichick. Even if I couldn't comprehend what that meant, I think those kind of things, I think that how personable and how funny he is, I think are pretty nice stuff to have, I think, as a fan. And you love to hear that he's not just this like hard ass that you see in the media.
Yeah, no matter what team you're playing, you always have a chance.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick's coaching, you got it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that, especially with the second half adjustments, just him going out there and we're just going to go ahead and just change this up real quick. And you know what I mean? Like he has that just super basic ass answers too. When he's out there like, hey, why did, what made you win this game? We scored more points. and that's it. You know what I mean? And like we're waiting for him to explain more, and like he's like, next question, like get me out of here. And then like I think him, it's funny because like they had the HBO special with him and Nick Saban. They are kind of similar in the fact that their answers are super just vanilla, just basic, but when you see them together they seem to open up a little bit more. And then you hear the stories. Like I remember Najee Harris was telling a story. He goes, "Oh yeah, man, Saban, he's a jokester." It's like, what? He's a jokester? Like he just seems like an asshole on the mic. He goes, "Oh no, man, he always gives these like, oh man, you want some of these? Like, oh what? These nuts,
Yeah.
And hearing stories, from Patriots, former Patriot players, like, oh yeah, he's a hard ass, but like he knows when to have fun. He knows when to chill. Like, your favorite player, Randy Moss, he invited him to that Halloween and he came just fully decked out as a pirate. And everyone's like, no way, man. That's so funny, and just seeing him like that, it's rare, it's rare, but
yeah, and if I can interrupt, like I think another thing that I also love seeing him in, I think as a fan, and I think for people that see him on the outside, I was watching him in the NFL 100 thing with Chris Collinsworth, Rich Eisen, and him, leading off and getting to watch. I've watched that like 30 or 40 minutes of just him and them and like Brady talking. I've watched that at least 10 times, like over and over, of just like watching Brady and Tom just like smile and laugh at each other. And I know everyone else could probably care less, but like after Brady leaves, like watching that back and have them talking football on the highest level and like hearing them say that the only one that can understand what I'm talking about at like this level is me and you, and like stuff like that, you just absolutely love to see. And again, I'm so beyond grateful to be able to grow up in this, but I think it'll definitely be tougher the older I get. And you don't see that championships just don't grow on trees. And I understand that's not the case, but a lot of my friends and other Boston fans do not understand that as much.
Yeah. Do you have a theory why maybe coaches that have worked under Bill haven't had much success outside of the Patriots? Like I'm looking at it right here. Romeo Crennel, Brian Flores, Joe Judge, Eric Mangini, Josh McDaniels, who he just got another opportunity, Bill O'Brien, Matt Patricia, Jim Schwartz. I mean, that's a lot of guys.
I honestly, I wish I had a better theory, and I really don't know what it is. And it seems like those guys will come back here and still have success. And I'm not really sure why they don't. I mean, I think that the other part of it is, I mean, like, I don't know, but could you also make the argument of like, how many coaches are really truly like successful? I think that's the other part of it, is that most coaches never last. Like there aren't a lot of Bill Belichick's, Mike Tomlin's, Andy Reid, Sean Payton's. There aren't many of those out there. So from almost any coaching tree, like Zach Taylor right now is looking great for the Bengals. But if the Bengals don't make the Super Bowl for 3 more years, he's gone and Zach Taylor is a failure. You know what I mean? And but I'm also, let me backtrack and say that I don't think any of those Patriots coaches ever won a Super Bowl or went to a Super Bowl with any of their other teams. But I think that I would say that there haven't been a lot of successful coaches out there. That's why they look like failures. But like, I don't think many of them even have playoff appearances. So I don't know. That's a theory that is probably just beyond me to give. That's my final answer.
Don't have Bill. The easy answer.
Exactly.
yeah, I think the most successful one, and he's not even that, is the Bill O'Brien, and he tried to take the Bill route by being the GM as well, which was a major mistake. They made playoffs a couple times, but at the same time, I feel like he was trying to be like Bill way too much, and he just didn't have the culture pieces. Like he didn't install that culture. He didn't have that lineage. He didn't have that. And then Bill established it. Bill made it great. Maybe Steve can do something with it with that mullet. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he gets a bad rap. After he left, you could see how much of a shit show that organization is. And hey, he actually might have lifted him up a little bit higher than they should have been. But I hated him while he was there. And then once he left, I was like, oh, he might have just had the short end of the stick on that one.
Yeah, seriously.
Yep. We're going to move on a little bit. The next one, we want to know what your favorite memory being a Patriots fan is. And you got a ton of Super Bowls you could choose from. It can even be a game you attended or just a classic game, playoff game, anything like that.
Yeah, I think there's one that sticks out to me more than anything. And I know that people like you're gonna hear me say, you're like, oh, here we go again, like the classic answer, but it's not. It's really not for me the classic answer. And it's obviously like the Super Bowl in 2016 against the Falcons. And it's not like everyone, oh, it was 28-3 and it was like the greatest comeback ever. Like that night for me watching it was something that like I'll never ever experience for the rest of my life. And I'm always the fan, and my friends hate me for it. And like, I don't blame them. But like every year, I always think we're gonna win. Every year, like I'm never gonna be the guy that says, I don't think it's our year. You know what I mean? Like I'm always like, it's not over until the fat lady sings. Every game, I always feel like, I'm gonna say we're gonna win no matter what. Never say die. And like that was like my ultimate, like never say die. But that was like truly in my heart. We're down 28-3, and it feels like you are on the ropes, but I remember saying to my dad, and if he was sitting here, he would tell you, and it doesn't mean like I was like this, like I called it. I just had hope, as I always do. And it just felt like, it was just a never say die. And if we just make one play at a time and we chip away and we chip away. And it was one of those things that after every big play that happened, even before the touchdown started kind of rolling in against the Falcons, that it was just me and my dad watching together. And we just kind of looked at each, kind of giving these glances like it might not be over. And like here, it's like we scored one touchdown. Like it's like 28-10 at this point, or 11, and like the game, or 12, I mean, and like it's not even like close to back yet, but it just felt like, okay, like let's just one more play, and there was just some kind of weird feeling I had inside me. And this is not like my weird feeling I have every game, but it just felt like something crazy was happening. And then it just got crazier and crazier, and our screams got louder and louder, and we were jumping around more and more and more. And it was just like one of those out of body experiences that you'll never forget. And I think that again, and I'm probably like you guys are siblings, so I'm sure you remember the games that you watched together that you love the most. And for myself, watching, hundreds of games, if not thousands of, total sporting events with my dad all the time. And when it was just me and him, who I watched with more than anyone else in the world, like there's no better way to experiencing it than watching it with the one person. If you could watch any game with any person with, it would be him. And to get to experience something that great, as a fan and as someone that was like 15 or 16 years old at the time, finally getting what it means to win a Super Bowl and getting how, this isn't going to happen forever. And after the suspension, after everything that happened, I know I'm giving a long-winded answer, but that was like everything I could have dreamed for in one moment. It wasn't just a 25-point comeback in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And something that me and Durant always talk about in the Super Bowls as well. He highlights it. I'm going to give him all the credit. He's like, man, there's always going to be a highlight play. There's always going to be a miracle moment. And to me, it was that Julian Edelman catch, like that. All this, like I remember seeing Keanu Neal walk away, like, oh, he dropped it, and like you see it, and you see the replay, and I'm like, holy shit, he caught that.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I actually don't even think it's the catch. Because at that point, I actually, okay, like it, like to me, that is 100% number two for me. And like, it's not even close, but number one, I don't think it's talked about enough. And I think it was, Dante Hightower's strip sack on Matt Ryan, because you guys have watched enough football to know all the times where you get to a play before halftime and it's like, don't take a sack. And like 99% of the time, people are pretty good. They don't take the sack. But that was the play with Matt Ryan, where if he doesn't take a sack, we don't win the Super Bowl. And somehow, some way, he takes the sack and a strip sack, and Dante Hightower strips the ball. Where I felt like with Edelman, and again, like I think Edelman, obviously, that's the classic play. 9 times out of 10, like sure, that is, of course, that is the play that really changed everything. But without that Hightower play, we don't win the Super Bowl. Whereas if Edelman doesn't make that catch, I still think we have a chance. But like, I don't know to this day how Matt Ryan didn't just throw the ball away. But that play, I think without that, I actually don't think we win. And Matt Bryant kicks a field goal and it's probably over.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan's not the type of guy to make that mistake either.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Colts fans were excited because he's a game manager. That's something that a game manager doesn't do, like you said,
Exactly.
Durant. But that moment is something. See, like I thought it was an Edelman thing, but that's something as a true fan of the Patriots would definitely know off the top of their hat, off the top of their head, just like that. That's a good one.
Speaking of one play that can kind of change everything, do you remember the Tuck Rule game versus the Raiders?
I've seen it. I was too young. I think I was like, I was probably, I think I was, because that was 2002 or 2003. I was 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah, that
So
was.
I don't remember it as much, but I've seen it a million times.
Yeah, that's the one I always ask Patriots fans because I feel like, of course, that was the start of, Brady's first Super Bowl,
Yeah.
going on that dynasty run for the next couple years. And without that call, the Patriots wouldn't have advanced. And, classic Adam Vinatieri kicking the field goal in the snow moment wouldn't have happened and all that stuff. So to me, that's the very start of, Tom Brady, the Patriots, and this 20-year run that they've been on.
Sure. And I'm not definitely not here to give a definitive answer on the Tuck rule thing in that call. My answer, I get asked it a lot as a Patriots fan, and my answer is just cringe. Like I just cringe at the thought of it because like I think as truly as a fan, I see both ways. Like I think that, and that's why I always feel bad. I'm one of the rare people in the universe that like cares for the refs and feels bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
But that was like the ultimate like lose call, because like no matter what you call there, like you are going to look like the biggest jerk on the planet to either half the people that are rooting for the Raiders or half the people rooting for the Patriots at the time. I just don't know how. Like it's one of those things where I wish you could just do a replay of the play instead of like having to make a call on that. And I just don't think that like it's just one of those things where you have to go with the call on the field. But I think it truly could have gone either way. I don't think it was like a fumble, but I don't think it was also an incomplete pass. It's just one of those things where I have to give you the crappy answer of say, I feel bad for the refs, because that was probably one of the worst moments ever to know that. You know what I mean? Like when you're imagine having the headset on, you're like, I'm going to have to piss off a lot of people, and they don't understand that I see right here that this is not definitive and I have to make a call one way or the other. You know what I mean? It's like you can't apologize and say then it's a fumble. Oh, I'm sorry, but it's a fumble. You got to say it's a fumble. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What if he just takes out the headphones like, I don't know, do over?
Yeah, run it back.
Yeah, sorry,
Ball
Chuck.
don't
Sorry, Tom.
lie.
I mean, do over. Well, what can I tell you?
Well, with all the good memories come the bad memories. Do you have a worse memory being a Patriots fan? I mean, it could be a Super Bowl loss, maybe Tom Brady leaving to go to the Bucks or anything like that.
The worst memory I think has to be the Super Bowl against the Eagles, because like like no matter who we were playing, Falcons, the Rams, the Seahawks. I mean, any team that we ever played in the Super Bowl that I can remember, like I never really felt that confident. I'm not someone that usually ever is like it's definitely going to happen. Like I always felt confident, but I was never like, oh, we're going to win this game. The Eagles Super Bowl is the one Super Bowl where like I remember like leading up to it, I wasn't that nervous. And I was like, we're going to win this game. Like, no way that Tom Brady loses to a backup, in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I don't know what happened with the whole Malcolm Butler sitting in that thing. And like, I don't like want to get into all of that, but like, that was one of those heartbreaking things where it was like the one time where like, I really felt like we're going to come tonight and there's going to be a Super Bowl celebration. And then Nick Foles does his Nick Foles thing, Philly special and all of that. And like, it's not like Brady had a bad game and the offense did everything you could. And it was like a college football game where the defense just couldn't get a stop. And I think that one was really hard to sleep with, because that was one of the only times in my life where I was like, we're going to win this game and we're going to celebrate tonight. And it just didn't happen. And I think that kind of soul crushing thing was really hard. The only other one that I think of for me that was really hard for me and I had a tough time sleeping was 2015, the year that the Broncos played the Panthers in the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning's last year when he retired. And we had a 2-point conversion, I think it was, to tie the game in the AFC Championship. And like we sailed one, or maybe it was 4th down, and we sailed one out of the back of the end zone at the end. And like it felt like as tough as that Broncos team was, we really had a chance at the end. And it's always those ones where you really have a chance and it comes down to the last play and you don't get it. I think that really hurts, but those are the two that definitely stick out. But nothing's worse than losing a Super Bowl. I'm sure you guys, I mean, I know that G said you're a Niners fan. I mean, again, you can understand it. That's not me taking a jab. You get it, how painful that is.
It definitely is. I mean, I remember watching that one, and a lot of people were like, "Oh man, I'm betting heavy on the Patriots," and I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'll bet on the Eagles." You know what I mean? But I knew in my heart, I was like, "Man, the Patriots is gonna win." I mean, like you said, it's Nick Foles. I mean, come on, man, this guy's been out of football before. He quit football. No way he's gonna win. And all of a sudden he does, and it's like, shit. Like, good for me. I won money, but at the same time, I'm like, man, I thought Tom was gonna win.
I don't mean to twist the knife, but I got to bring up one more. What did I had written down? The 18-0 season, and then you make it to, and then your boy Randy Moss does not get his Super Bowl. You guys win every single game, make it to the Super Bowl, and Eli Manning does it once again.
Oh, that one, like I was too young. Like I think that it was like my first season. Like, and this sounds so silly, but because I was like 7 years old when that happened, my first season I remember of watching Patriots football, Matt Castle was the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Like my first memory watching football was not Tom Brady. It was Matt Castle, being quarterback for the Patriots, and that being like one of the only one of two 11-5 teams to not make the playoffs in NFL history. That's a real stat. But again, that 18-0 thing, like every time I watch it to this day, it's just one of those like head scratching things that is just one of those, you see them in sports all the time, like the US beating Russia, in that famous hockey game in 1980 in the Miracle on Ice. It's just like one of those special moments of time where like you felt like you just couldn't control anything and it just didn't matter. And like I always feel upset watching it. I know Brady said himself, like when he was still with the Patriots, I'd trade 2 rings to get that ring back, against the 2007 Patriots. And you see it all the time with like, whether it's the 18-0 Patriots and they lost, or the 73-9 Warriors. And like people don't talk about those teams, the greatest teams of all time, because they didn't win it all. And it's one of those things that, you'll forever think about. But the knife definitely doesn't hurt as bad for me as it does for other people because I didn't get to experience it. But I think it's always one of those things that it's like, oh, bummer. I wish I could. But one thing, if I can bring up real quick, I know I'm going on a slight tangent. And this one of my friends brought this up, and you have to go look and see it because I didn't believe him. But on the last play of that Super Bowl, Tom Brady had the ball. It was like 4th down and whatever. There was like 4 seconds left in the game against the Giants in that 2007 Super Bowl. Brady rolled out to the right and threw the ball nearly like 70 yards downfield, double covered. And it was like 2 feet away from Randy Moss catching that. And like where he was and where his body was, if you go back to the play, the way the ball looks like is if it just landed in his hands, he probably would have walked into the end zone. Not walked in, but like he had a step on the defenders. He's like 5 yards away when the ball actually like drops. So like I think he would have got in, but it was one of those things that it like you watch the play back and you're like, how did Brady throw it that far? And it was so close. And it's almost like one of those, what if plays that all of us fans will forever dream about and talk about and relive over and over. And you wish that what if that happened?
I mean, it sucked, man. I thought you guys were going to get that one for Randy for sure. Then I thought we were for Randy, when we played against the Ravens. It didn't happen. So, it sucks. But, yeah, man, that's Plexico Burris getting the game-winning touchdown against y'all. That was – I did not see the Giants winning. But like Strahan said, like everything fell into place that day. And he's like, where were the underdogs? We were surprised we won too.
That's why you love sports. I mean, we live, and again, if it's not the Patriots, like I live for the underdogs. I live for the 16 seed UMBC beating, Virginia in college basketball. Like I live for the upsets every time. I always want to see the underdog win, and like that's one of the rare times I can't, enjoy it. But I live for those moments in sports where everything falls right on a certain day, and the moon just happens to be in a certain way that things happen. That's why we love sports, though, and I think that's the beauty in all of it. The greatest team does not always win.
Yeah, you got to have that dog mentality.
Let's move on to some brighter days, your future expectations for the Patriots. I mean, coming up in this year's draft, you got 3 top 100 picks at number 21, 54, and 85. Is there a direction you want to go there? You want to get a wide receiver, offensive lineman? What are we thinking?
Any free agents out there that you guys want to pick up?
Yeah, I think that free agents, like I don't think there's really anybody like glaring. Like I'd love to see us bring in like a Bobby Wagner, because he's out there, and I'd love to see someone that great that will be a Hall of Famer someday, play for us. And I love getting to see like even for 1 year, like Shaq playing with the Celtics. Like I just want to see the Hall of Famer play, even though Bobby Wagner is still playing really well. Like I love to see those guys play for my own teams. I'd love to see us bring in someone like Bobby Wagner because he hasn't made a decision. I'd love to see like Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, one of those guys brought in. But in the draft, I'd love to see us get like a dynamic receiver, whether it's like someone like a Jameson Williams, Treylon Burks, Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, I love. He reminds me of Deontay Johnson, which is one of my guys. Like I love guys that just separate and effortlessly seem to get open. I'd love to see us get a receiver. Obviously, we need a cornerback. I'd love to see us bring in Stephon Gilmore, because he hasn't signed yet. Maybe he could come back and replace J.C. Jackson. But if not, I'd love to see us, draft a corner, draft someone like that, maybe draft someone, that could be an edge rusher to go along and pair well with Matthew Judon to give him a little bit of a partner. I think there's a lot of different ways you could go. But Durant, I don't know, man. You said brighter days in the future. I'm not sure there's much brighter days after Tom Brady leaves, and then Russell Wilson, Devontae Adams are getting added into AFC. I don't know if I'd call those brighter days, but man, I'm excited to see how it goes, and I'm excited to hopefully see Mac Jones play well for the Patriots for years to come. And I think the thing is that you see with the guys that, they might not win anymore, like in Kobe's last couple of seasons or Derek Jeter's last couple of seasons, and guys that I know you know what that's like. And for someone like, as a fan of Bill Belichick, like these are his last few years. He probably less than 5 years left. And I think it's the same thing with Tom Brady. Like, no matter where he goes, like, I'm going to root for him. I don't care if it's for the Jets. Like, I just want to enjoy every single game that I can get with those guys. Just try to enjoy everything I can get while we still have it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that you said Garrett Wilson, because I feel like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and I'm gonna say you guys are gonna like to pull like a trigger and draft him first round, even though he's like third round ranked. Is probably like Christian Watkins from North Dakota State.
Sure.
But then again, you guys traded away Chase.
Chase Winovich.
Yeah, okay. I didn't want to butcher the last name. You guys traded him away, so yeah, I can definitely also see you guys going edge. But both positions, they're really, really deep in this draft. Of course, I mean, we would all love to bring in the Honey Badger. Between Honey Badger and Bobby Wags, I even for any team, I think I would pull Honey Badger over Bobby Wags for sure. Just that's and. You can't go wrong with any answer.
Somehow the Rams are going to get both.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. Were you surprised that you guys didn't franchise tag J.C. Jackson?
Surprised? I would say no, because I think that it's like a historical. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it, because you always want to see those homegrown, undrafted guys stay with the team, even if it's for a lot of money. But from what I was reading coming up to it, it just said that, like, even if we franchised him, like, we were never going to be able to sign him to a long-term deal. They just didn't want to pay him, like what he was going to get, especially with the cap going up. Like, I think if it was in the COVID year and this happened, I think maybe we franchise him or get him under a good deal. Like, we signed so many people with the cap going up, and you see some of the millions per year these guys are making now under this cap. It didn't really feel like realistic that we were going to get him, but truly awesome to see guys like him and like Jonathan Jones, another underrated Patriot, both undrafted cornerbacks that, developed into like borderline Pro Bowl talents. I mean, J.C. Jackson is a Pro Bowl talent. You love to see those guys. But again, I'm happy he got paid. It might not be with us, but one of those guys that, when they leave your team, it's tough, but they'll always have a special place in your heart.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember everybody saying that Dante Hightower, like, they were surprised they kept him for as long as they have. And which is surprising because, he came from that, Alabama connection, and you guys just traded for Mac Wilson, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, to Alabama, they already have that camaraderie because I think they overlapped it 1 year or two. Man, that's, two solid linebackers, and you guys traded away peanuts for Mac Wilson too. So, that's solid. So, yeah, man, we'll see what's next for you guys, whether in free agency you guys, sign some underrated guy and turn him into, Pro Bowl player, who knows,
Yeah, definitely.
I got one more question for the future, and it's what's up with this OC spot? I mean, is Bill going to be the one with the sheet calling the plays next year? What's going down?
I hope we don't do the same thing with like Steve Belichick and Gerard Mayo, where they you don't name the defensive coordinator. One of them's gonna call plays, but you're not gonna know who it is. Like come on, man. Like we're in 2022. Just name the offensive coordinator. I just want to know so I can talk about it, and I don't have to guess and say the Patriots play caller when I'm talking on a podcast. Yep. I don't know who it's gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna be Joe Judge or even Matt Patricia, one of those guys. Obviously, I wish it was Josh McDaniels. I like him a lot more than other people do. But again, I'm happy to see those guys get big opportunities. But to answer your question, I have no idea who it is.
Nobody does.
I hope they name
Bring
one.
back the teapot, man. Bring back O'Brien.
No, you know who it's going to be? It's going to be the generic Patriots coach from every Madden that doesn't have the name, and it's supposed to be Belichick. It's going to be that guy, probably, calling the plays this year.
It's going to be John Smith.
It's going to be John Smith that is to not be named. Exactly.
I'm just curious. So, if we were going to go out to a game, say we went out to Foxborough, we wanted to go to a game, where would we go for some good food, some some good beers, where would we go? Some good beers. Where would we go?
I think the place that I don't know if I'd say the best beers, but I think the classic place that you have to go be Cheers. I mean, I think most people have heard of the show Cheers, but the fact that we have the Cheers and I literally live a 15-minute walk away, and going to see it looks just like the real set you see back in the day. There's always people coming in. It's a popular tourist spot. I mean, the beers are good, the food's good, everything that's good. I think that's a classic one. That's a really, really good place to watch the game. But the other place that I wouldn't call it a game spot, but if you do come to Boston, the best cocktails you'll get in Boston is called Carry Nation. It's the restaurant I work at. It's my favorite job I've ever had. I've been there for the last 3 years.
Shout out.
The best. Shout out. I know. Literally the best cocktails in Boston. They do a really good job there. 1920s theme bar. Gotta come check it out. And they have the TVs for the games, obviously. But not the big TVs like a Buffalo Wild Wings kind of place.
It's all good.
How far is Concord from you guys?
Concord's probably 45 minutes.
All right, I'm working there in the next month. I'm gonna go visit. I'll be there sometime this month for work.
Are you really?
So, yeah, I'll be there.
Come into the city. Let's get a drink sometime.
Yeah, I'll hit you up for sure.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I'll be all by myself, so I'll definitely hit you up.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, somebody brought me a beer. It was, I don't know if the brewery was named Titletown or the beer itself was named Titletown, but it was actually a solid beer. And coming from Sonoma County, where we're at, it's like the beer, century. It's a beer state over here, wine and beer country over here. So it was actually a really good beer. So I got to hunt that down for sure. I got to look that up. Before I ask that question.
Absolutely. If I can real quick on the topic of beer, if you come, especially coming to my restaurant, you can have the greatest IPA ever created. Whenever the name comes off my lips, people go nuts over it, and people come to have it. It's the Main Lunch. I don't know if okay. Duran, we have to find a place that has the Main Lunch. If you come here and you can tell him it is the greatest IPA you will ever drink, I recommend it to every single person, and every single time the reaction is the same. People just go nuts.
All right, Dan. I'm at the get a couple of days off work and fly out there with you to try this Main Lunch.
Oh, I see it. Maine, MAINE.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The Main Lunch.
Oh,
okay.
What's up, Maine? All right. All right. It's debatable, man. Me and Duran may have to put together a package of beer and send it out to you, man.
Absolutely.
We'll see, man. Just I'll hit you up on the DMs. Send me your address. We'll send you out a care package, and we can compare.
All right, fair enough. I'm game for it. Always down to compete. Boston.
Nice.
You're a Yankees fan, a Lakers fan. I'm always ready to go.
Let's go.
All right, Alex. I think that's it for us today. Tell everyone where they could find you one more time.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Alex Caruso, on TikTok at Alex Caruso NFL, and you can find me on YouTube at Fresh Fantasy. But guys, thank you so much for having me. You guys were such a great show. Great questions,
thank you.
Everything like that. You guys were a blast. Thank you for having me on.
You got it. All your links will be down below, and of course, you could follow us on Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you find your podcast. G, you got anything else?
Nothing else from me, man. But thanks again, Alex. We appreciate you, and everybody. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe and like button. It'd mean a lot.
Thank you. Till next time.
All right. Cheers.